Okay, so today you find me at Lugano Airport in Switzerland in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and as you can see in front of you we have got the Pilatus Porter, and we're going to take it for a fly around the airfield. So you can see I've got live weather on, but I have changed the time to early morning, so it's winter in Switzerland and the snow is here, and there's some twinkly lights from the houses all around. So we'll get the plane fired up and we'll fly a circuit and land and see how it goes. I have to admit I'm a bit of a fan of the Porter, even though it's such an ugly duckling of an aeroplane. It's actually good fun to fly. So, looking at the airfield scenery as well, it's worth noting Lugano had the scenery upgraded as of World Update 7. So it actually looks, pretty much like the real place, which is great. Okay, so inside the aircraft. When you start the Porter up from on a parking spot, it's not fully cold and dark, so I've actually gone round before I started recording and switched everything off so we can go through and switch everything on properly. Bizarrely, although the engine isn't started when you start on a parking spot, half the switches are on, which is a bit weird. Okay, so let's go through and switch things on one at a time. So we've got the master switches here. Notice you lose the torch as soon as you hit a master switch. Then we've got the radio master switches and the emergency radio switch, and we've got some. Well, I can use the tooltips to show you along the way. The lights on the aircraft, the pitot heat, nav lights, instrument lights, cabin lights, cockpit fan. We'll switch everything. We'll just see if it has any effect. The landing lights, the position lights for the aircraft. And that's pretty much everything. The cabin lights, have they got multiple? No, it just doesn't flick up all the way. Okay, so let's go and turn on the radios. Note there's a bit of a bug with this. Unless you turn the bottom one on, the top one won't come on. I don't expect the real thing behaves like that. It kind of does come on. If you let go of it, it goes off. So unless this one's switched on, this one won't come on. I noticed that when I was switching it off. This is the ignition, but there's no point turning the ignition on until we turn the fuel on. But before we do that, let's just explain what we've got here. So this is the fuel mixture. So you've got cut off, which is this folding plate here. If we were to move this forwards, this slips across to stop you cutting off by accident. So if you wanted to cut the fuel off, you have to move that first, and then you can move the mixture back to cut off again. Does that make sense? So let's push that forwards, and you can see it stops that from happening. So we're going to go for the rich mixture anyway. This is the propeller pitch, which we can drag around in this aircraft. So we're going to put it on max fine, and then the throttle obviously is connected to the throttle. So let's go now. Turn the fuel on over here. And then we've got two switches here. We've got below them, we've got the ignition on and then the starter. So ignition on and then the starter. You can see the propeller is starting to turn. If we go and look outside, you'll be able to hear it a bit better. Okay, so before I started the engine I should really have done the pushback, but I'm going to do that now anyway. So take the wheel brakes off. The wheel brake, by the way, is a pull knob. If we press it, you'll see it happen. Oh, sorry, that's a cable. There's a cable here. You can see if we pull that cable up, it actually locks the pedals. So in the real aircraft, you move the pedal to put the brakes on, and then you pull the red cable, and it locks the pedals where you were holding them. And then obviously to release the pedals, you just release the cable. Okay, so stop pushing. And start moving around. So if we just sit up in our seat, we're just going to do a quick flight around Lugano and come back in again. I think the turbo port is great. But Lugano looks amazing, doesn't it? The scenery. So we're going to pull out onto the runway here. We've got a 5-knot wind down the runway. So we're going to pull on here, turn left and start rolling almost straight away. So you can see there's a small switch here that puts the flaps up and down. So I've gone for 2 notches of flaps for takeoff. Before we actually take off, let's just have a quick look. So you have to be careful because it's a tail dragger, but you can see I've given it 2 lots of flaps. So let's accelerate, feeding in some rudder to get us back on the centre line. It's pulling gently left. That'll just be the engine torque doing that. Pull gently back. So the Porter is renowned for being a short takeoff landing aircraft, so it's no surprise we were able to get off the ground at sort of 40-50 knots. So let's lift the flaps and pull the throttle back to 50%. Notice how slow the engine responded to the throttle, or how slowly I should say. So we're cruising along at about 70 knots. So if obviously we can't turn left because there's a working great hillside in the way. So we're just going to buzz these farmers' fields and go and fly back over the airfield and then come back in. But yeah, the Porter flies really, really well. I mean, obviously you can trim it and you can fly incredibly slowly. So we're running along at 50% throttle here. Just keeping an eye on the vertical speed. So you've got basic instruments, got airspeed, artificial horizon, altimeter. There's backup attitude indicator and altimeter over here. You've got vertical speed, and you've got your fuel and a compass and nav1. So it's pretty good. Let's just sit down in the cockpit a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so we're just going to slowly turn in and go and land it again. So Lugano looks amazing in the snow, doesn't it? The weather modelling in flight sim is really quite something. Getting a stall warning, so we're going to go for the first stage of flaps. Notice how slow we're going, we're only doing 60 knots. Hey, full flaps. And we're down. There's the flaps. and turn off the runway. And back to where we started. Yeah, Lugano looks amazing in the snow. I think we might be doing a group flight here soon. So yeah, if you didn't know, if you haven't seen my videos before, I actually help run an online group called virtualflight.online. So you can find everything out about it on the internet. We run group flights twice a week, or try to run group flights at least twice a week. Usually an IFR flight and a VFR flight. On Sunday evenings we fly a VFR flight. We have a Discord server, so all of the pilots can join in and have a chat while we're flying around a route somewhere around the world. Okay, we'll just park up. Okay, so let's make the point about this. We'll just put the parking brake on. So let's make the point about this, of how this works. So if we move the cutoff and cut this back, you'll hear the engine die. We can also do the same thing by cutting the fuel. So the engine is dying as we speak. So you can hear that happening outside. So there you go, other than going and switching off all the switches around the cockpit, we're pretty much done. So I'm going to stop recording there and have a play in the Porter. It's really good fun. And it's easy to fly. You saw then I was just flying around 50% throttle and it was quite happy. So there you go. I'm going to stop recording.